Welcome to another edition of the Marketing B-Sides. I'm your host, Tom Hootman. This, as you recall, is the podcast where everyone's a marketer. No one really has it figured out, and we're all just faking it till we make it. Like, there's been this theme recently of higher education, maybe because we're in the backyard of Indiana University. Go Hoosiers. That's probably it. Today's guest is Dr. Mansur Khamitov. Mansur is an assistant professor at Indiana University at the Kelley School of Business. And what I love about his background is that, no offense to anyone else in higher ed or in education, but he spent quite a few years in CPG, consumer packaged goods for the uninitiated, and in pharmaceutical goods, consumer goods. And his focus is really on consumer behavior, which I find fascinating because I think consumer behavior is a thread that you can pull along performance media. You can pull in AI now. You can pull with your Don Draper, Heinz ketchup in a boardroom on a flip pad. It really is consistent for decades, consumer behavior. And I love the fact that he's worked on the brand side, he's worked in-house, and now he's on the higher ed side, really primarily work with seniors, students getting ready to graduate. It's a fascinating conversation. We could have gone for a couple hours because there's just a lot to go through. And I love picking his brain because the depth of his experience in research he does and continues to do, because he's been published in too many places to mention. And his resume is intimidating, to be honest with you, pretty intimidating. But I consider him a friend because we've met before, and he does a wonderful job with his classes. And I really appreciate him taking time to sit down with me. Enjoy the episode. Mansur, Dr. Mansur Khamitov, thanks for sitting down with me for a bit. And I'm excited to hopefully get to meet some of your classes again in the future, but also sit back down, extend this conversation. I hope you enjoy it. As always, shoot me an email and tell me what you hate about the show. If there's something you like about it, that's cool too. Like, subscribe, all the, the yada, yada, yada. Let me know what you think. And thanks for listening. Kathleen and Sound. We're headed downtown. You've been kind enough to invite me into your class to speak, which I still tell stories about to this day. It's an insanely amazing experience. Thank you, by the way. I always I remember preparing both times, like we were going to talk about X, Y, and Z, and then we get through X, Y, and Z, and everyone's half asleep, and then we start talking about A, B, and C, about just how this shit runs and what it's like in an agency, and everyone lights up and asks a bunch of questions. So it's fun for me because I was worried that the students are always going to be in the weeds, because I hate weeds. And instead they're like, tell me your best clients like. And I'm like, yeah, I can do this all day long. This is fun. So I'm curious, you come from a background in CPG. You worked on the brand side. Tell me how your journey of how you started there. Did you think you'd be in academia, like higher ed, or did it just kind of happen upon you? What did that path look like?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks first, for this kind introduction, and also for being my guest speaker at the classes. Let me say everyone had a tremendous blast. As for my experience, right? So yeah, pretty different. So what I do now in the higher ed is fairly different, like you said, from what I've done in the past. So most of my industry experience have been all on the client side. So first at P&G, as a brand manager. So I was responsible for Oral-B, Crest, Kamain, Safeguard brands, so kind of personal care, kind of oral care, stuff like that. And then after that, I actually had a stint at big pharma, so at a generic company, also on the brand side, a lot of brand marketing, brand management strategy, those kinds of things. Little did I know where that path is going to lead me. So what happened was, I was in the industry, enjoying myself, enjoying my time there, and then at some point you realize, if what you do is great, is awesome, you learn a lot, but that's something not necessarily that you want to do over the long run. Like long term, I was like, do I really see myself growing in the company, becoming CMO or whatever? Like, is that something that I'm built for, what I want to do? And long term, I was like, yeah, I learned a lot, it's a great experience, but I don't see myself doing that forever. So that was kind of my realization, I guess, the big realization there.
How many years were you in that before you started to realize?
Yeah, so I would say, so I think I was actually in the industry, well, not for that long. So I think total must have been like 3.5 years. So probably like 2 years into the role, I'm like, yeah, what, I want to do something different. I want to do something that's also quite intellectually stimulating and challenging. So in the industry, I mean, at least my experience was a lot of these tools, frameworks that we use, right? I mean, if they work, they work, that's great, but no one cares why. No one kind of worries about, like why does this stuff work, right? Or what are
Yeah.
the assumptions that we're making? Like, yeah, don't worry, it works, just do it the way we've been doing it for a long time. Use this framework, use this tool. And I was like, well, I'm kind of curious to learn more about the why and, the assumptions and the process. And I think I was not really getting that much. And big part of that was also, I mean, I was working for big multinational corporations, right? So there's only so much wiggle room. Like, unlike the space we're in right now, where there's a lot of creative flexibility, right? I was like, big brands, big organizations, big budgets, just, stick to the normal stuff.
Yeah, there's like a script. Like you almost have to like
Yep.
you kind of like fold into the herd a bit. Now there's changes within each nuance of each project, but you kind of learn how the machine works and you work within the machine initially.
Absolutely.
This is more
Absolutely.
creative. I hear this a lot when you work for large agencies or large brands. Did you ever have any concerns about, and this was a concern for me, right? Like job security long term, right? Like, do I hit a ceiling or do I one day wake up and I'm not a fit, right? Like, did you feel pretty safe?
Well, I mean, I think saying that like one would truly feel safe. I mean, that's probably an overstatement. It's always a dynamic, fluid environment where long term, again, like there's no guarantees, right? Even though, I mean, like we're not in back then, it wasn't 2026, which is a whole different kind of Wild West type of story.
Yeah.
But
Yes,
back
very
then,
much so.
exactly. But back then I was like, you know what? I mean, I didn't have like, I guess, existential concerns or anything like that, but I was like, yeah, again, not that excited, I guess, in some way, or like not that intellectually stimulated. And then, yep, that's how I ended up sort of like, what's the next best thing? What can I do next? And that led me to more of an academic path, which we can also talk about that part too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because you making the switch from really private sector to public sector. It's a big change to do what you're doing now versus what you were doing before. What was that moment like, or when was that moment where you transition? You walk in the classroom and you're like, "Holy shit, this is radically different than I expected," and like this is a whole new ball game versus
Yeah,
where I was before.
for sure. And I mean, you get that, right? Like, so in the private sector, it's very sort of self-focused, organization-focused, right? Like profit making, all that kind of stuff, which is, I mean, still critical in many ways to, our own lives. And even like if you think about the notion of a personal brand. But yeah, I think in the higher education, it's way more inherently pro-social, right? So it's about the community. It's about building the future generation of marketers, of whether they're going to be on the brand side or on the agency side, etc. So I was quite a bit of a change. I was a little prepared for that, solely because when I was actually doing my like undergrad and MBA and whatnot, I had a very early sneak peek of what that could be. So I was doing some like teaching assistant, research assistant. So I was vaguely familiar, at least, with the whole system. But again, what came to me, for example, as a surprise was how much of an emphasis is made on research. So to me, what I was signing up for, I thought it's a completely teaching gig. It's going to be like teaching, instruction, and that's it. A little did I realize that, yeah, in academia, it's teaching is still hugely important, but so is research and kind of publishing papers, stuff like that.
Yeah, things that I think I'm making an assumption based on my sample size of one. I don't think about at all. I think teaching,
Yeah,
like you're in front of the students all day long. Like the research, you mentioned it before we were recording. Like this is your time of year to like do your research and get your papers. Like that is an entire job in addition to the job that you have.
100%. 100%. A very different feel, very different vibe. But, I love different elements of our profession, right? So they kind of, in some ways, very complementary, and you don't get bored because it switches up quite a bit.
Yeah. So do you reserve this time for the summer to work on research? And throughout the year, are you keeping track of directions you want to take your research or research you want to do? Or does it come up? How does that process
But
come about?
yeah, so it's I mean, a lot of it is always ongoing, right? So I mean, even when you're teaching, right, you always stumble upon a cool idea, a cool project. Like for example, because a lot of the research that you do is on brands, branding, brand loyalty, brand trust, consumer brand relationships, right? Like if I, read in practitioner book or look in the popular press, I'm like, okay, this is super interesting, right? Like they're talking about brand purpose in this way or in that way. So I start to get excited naturally. So that a lot of that happens even during the academic year when I'm teaching. But then, of course, once you have that some specially reserved time, like let's say summer or maybe during like a longer break or something, I think that is a bit more focused time. But I think it's always an ongoing process throughout the
Yeah.
year.
And for the listeners, I think you focus, I think with me, you asked to focus on consumer behaviors, right? Like it's the psychology of brand recognition, consumer behaviors. Can you talk just a little bit about like your class in particular and what your key focus and what you work with the students on?
Sure, Tom. Yeah, happy to take it. And I mean, again, a lot of that sort of interest in consumer psychology of brands, so related to branding, or again, naturally happened since my industry days. So again, as a brand marketer, so to speak, I was always fascinated about that aspect. And then what I'm teaching right now, and that is informed a lot by my research, is consumer behavior, consumer psychology. So in fact, again, it's a structured process where we looked at different domains of consumer behavior, different elements right behind who we are as consumers, how we behave, how we make decisions the way we do, etc. But even that big part of that course is again very much kind of driven by consumer brand interactions and relationships that consumers establish with brands, with organizations. So we try to have quite a bit of that strong element in the classroom as well.
This is what fascinates me a bit. Two amazing members of my team at Mixtape, Noah and Madison, I met through speaking to your class. I'd always worked with entry level, but I didn't have as much exposure to entry level team members. And so I might interview them and have a check in once a month for the first 90 days. But never, by the time I started working with them or started to see them start to speak up and be on calls on my agency side life, they were already 6 months, a year in. Now I started to work with the next generation of marketers like from day one. So, and
Mhm.
I've been completely impressed with just the acumen. And I mentioned to you like how open to feedback they are and the way that they're just hungry to learn constantly. I'm interested in your POV, looking at your former experience. Like, what do you think this generation of new marketers? What are they better at today than most seasoned marketers may realize or may take for granted?
Absolutely. Well, at least a number of things. And again, I love to talk about that, given that, all our direct access to them and sort of how we get to shape like a lot of their thinking. But yeah, I think there's at least several things that very much distinguish the current marketers who are entering the workforce, right? So there would be like what, if they're about 22 or something like that, that would be 2004, which is kind of crazy, blows my mind.
Jeez. Yeah, don't. Let's not do
Where
the fucking
it's
math.
not,
No, I don't want to do
we're
the
not
math.
getting any younger. But basically, with them, what I see immediately, right? So, just well, first, their heart, right? How passionate they are about the world of marketing, broadly speaking, how very invested they are, like having coming in with informed perspective on things, just being quite driven. The other big thing that I'm seeing, and I'm not sure, I would love to also hear your take on that, but the notion of values and kind of being a values driven consumer, but also being a values driven employee. I had talked to so many of them where, unlike maybe some of the early generations, they're like, you know what, if I believe in the mission of the organization, I'm excited about what they do, about their vision, about their purpose. You know what, if I'm in a competitive offer situation, I may even go for whatever 10% pay cut, 20% pay cut, or whatever, just to be able to contribute to their mission, to work for them. So it's a very different mindset where for a lot of the older generation was like, whoever pays me the most, I don't care what they do, I don't care what they sell, I'll just work for the better, paying job or just the I don't know bigger name organization. They're different. They're different to build. So I've come to appreciate that a lot.
It I appreciate you bringing that up because it is true, and I think that it's hard for me to delineate the generational component versus the impact that I think COVID had on people's
So
perspective, right?
true.
Because these are students who, if they graduated last year, they were in high school during COVID, right? So their entire world kind of changed during those formative years, and I think that a little bit of I've seen it in a lot of people I've worked with before who have made changes. They make life changes because it gave us, I mean, this insane event happened that changed everyone's perspective on what was really truly important. And I think it was something that was bubbling up for a while, but it kind of was the breaking point. I don't want to say breaking point, but the change point of, okay, what's really important to me? And maybe I can make less money and have like the work-life balance, work-life harmony that I want and really focus on what I want. And maybe it's not just chasing money because there's also the economy sucks. People can't buy houses.
Yeah,
7% interest rates, down payments. Like the
it's real.
'08 crash kind of broke that initially, and then COVID happens. There's this environment where if you're 22, 25, you can't follow the old script. And remember, the old script was from back in our day, you wanted a six-figure job. And it was
Yep.
like, I make six figures. And it was like that for decades. Like it's a six-figure job, and everyone just kind of knew, oh, this is important. Like this is a lot of money. Now, six-figure job, you probably still can't buy a house, or like you have to save. Like it isn't a ticket anymore to like an
Yep.
automatic barometer for success. Success, we'll say, if money equals success. So I think part of that being broken leads people to realize what do I really want out of life? And I remember those days when I worked at an agency that didn't pay as much as other agencies, but the work life harmony was great. And we had, I think, at one point over 85% employee retention, maybe
Mhm.
90, almost to a point where you're like, we should be losing more people than this, right? But there was I think a good balance of great people doing great work for amazing clients, and the freedom and ability to like, you're a professional, we trust you. Go do your thing. Here are the parameters with which you can work. Be here between 7 and 10 a.m., work your 8 hours. That was different at the time. And I remember my friends would be like, you can go in whenever you want. Like, yeah, I can go in between 7 and 10, get my 8 hours in, and I can leave. I try to go in early because I want my day to end early. And it was kind of mind blowing because we came up through a world of 8 to 5. You probably had to wear a suit and a tie, as did I back in the
Yep.
day.
More
And
formal. Yep.
very formal, stringent guidelines. And I think as those relaxed and loosened, people start to have perspective on what's really important to them. Because I have friends who went remote who are now in environments where they're having to go back in, and they're changing because
Hmm.
they realize it's better for their mental health and their well-being to be able to have more flexibility. So I think that this generation that is graduating now is part of that early wave, the people who kind of come into adulthood with that environment versus the banker's hours, suit, tie rules. So like they are more comfortable with flexibility than the previous. So it's less about money
Yeah. Yeah.
inherently.
Well, that's what we also see. And I mean, again, everyone has their own career path and preferences that are. But even the what you just said, right? Like the whole rising, hey, we're gonna do things differently, right? We're gonna be maybe like more and more people are having freelance roles, right? Or the whole rise of the influencer economy, all that stuff, right? Like previously, like who would think it would be like considered like a real job? And now we have a bunch of our students who will be like, you know what? I have this couple million followers on TikTok. Upon graduation, I'm gonna move to Miami. I'm gonna continue with that, right? And I mean, great. They're excited about that. They see good opportunity, very different from the traditional roles that we would have in the mind.
Yeah, I mean, I'm reminded of a conversation I had with Dagan Tuggerson, who was the drummer in a very popular band called Murder by Death. They toured every year. They had, I think, 10 or 12 albums out. And we talked about how the creator economy has changed and created a separate track for musicians on TikTok or Instagram where they just play along, or they'll just show you the chord. Or there's a guy I love who shows you every guitar part in tandem for like all of
Mm,
these like old 80s metal songs. So you get to see who's playing what part. That's a really great income. And it's another path that doesn't involve hopping in a van, staying in a Best Western every night and traveling city to city. That was the only path. It was that or studio, right? Like you're a
yeah.
session musician. And now you can be a musician and not have to follow that path. Similar to like influencer economy or user generated creative
Uh-huh.
has changed the game for creative teams. I mean, you can turn it around fast, and you can engage with an influencer long term, or you can do a one and done. It's there's flexibility that wasn't there before.
Absolutely. It's a very different and interesting world we live in.
Yeah. So you work predominantly with seniors, correct?
I would say it's a good, healthy mix of kind of everything. So I mean, I had experience doing MBA, so like grad courses, PhD courses, undergrads, and then within undergrad, it's a pretty healthy range. I mean, for sure, just because traditionally the course that I've been teaching more focused on consumer behavior, consumer psychology, it's been elective at least for longest of times. Now things have shifted around quite a bit, but I'd say a good number of seniors. Always, I get to see them quite a bit, but then yeah, some juniors, sophomores too, every now and then.
Well, I get asked this a lot. I
Yeah.
also I have friends in the media school, so I spoke at Career Day, and I got this question a
Okay.
lot. Like people are really focused on networking. How do I get a job after school? How do I? And And it's a lot of it is the same advice I give of like, do some work for free, right? Build your portfolio and just know that you're just going to talk to people. You don't have to like submit resumes and go through, like you just find time with people who work in the industry you want to be in and then just talk to them, ask them questions, interview them.
Yeah.
And I'm interested from your perspective. The reason I asked if you work with seniors is that you're a bit more of this at this turning point for students who are going out into the workforce. Do you engage with brands or with agencies or with companies? Are you involved at all in those conversations? And I mean, if you are, like what advice would you give to like a brand or a company hiring a marketer that they may take for granted at this point? Like if I'm a brand or I'm an agency and I'm hiring someone straight out of your school, like what's a good piece of advice for them? Like how do I find the best candidates? Because I think everyone
Yeah.
right now is just dumping a bucket of job postings on LinkedIn and hoping for the best.
Exactly, exactly. No, and I mean it's fascinating topic because even though, yeah, I mean we as individual faculty, right, we may not be formally involved in like recruiting process, right, which is happens a lot through career counselors and stuff like that. Still, we as faculty serve as this bridge between the industry and the friends and connections that we have among like different, organizations and then the students themselves. So in fact, when I talk to our like good friends, especially in the industry, and who are searching for this promising entry level talent and candidates, including from our school, there's a couple of things that I always mention. Right, one, I mean, right now, especially with, and I totally get it. I mean, it is what it is, but a lot of this recruiting or scouting for talent is done via automated tools, right? Whether you just having Gen AI do the job, or maybe some kind of I don't know, proprietary HR analytics, whatever system. My advice there is always like, yeah, I mean, it's cost effective, efficient, right? You probably don't want to sift through this hundreds and hundreds of resumes, etc. At the same time, right, like I mean, it's a missed opportunity because a lot of times, right, like if you look at this, I mean, there are certain standard things that people care about, like let's say GPA, or where you did your internship, or what programming languages you use well, or like whatever. Yeah, that thing is, I mean, it's on the paper, but really where you'll see potential, where you can see that is by, well, first getting yourself as a recruiter from these marketing agencies or organizations, getting involved deeply, like even if it means spending a bit more time to go through some of these resumes, CVs, or reaching out to the promising candidates that are so kind of automation is good to some extent, but maybe not necessarily in this kind of process. There's a human component there. There's something that the machine may not pick up on, but you, with your years of experience, may. So I think that's almost like, I mean, sounds pretty simple and generic, but that's a big one.
Not generic at all. Not generic. Well, I think part of it is it's a game. It's a machine is a game, and people learn how to game the system. So there's like
So
when
true.
when people started leveraging AI for hiring, then there's a wave of people leveraging AI as individuals to get their resume up front, and then it shifts and it
Yep.
iterates. The one thing that doesn't change is a bit of right place, right time, and that isn't something you can really manufacture necessarily through AI. Like you just have to put yourself out there and have the conversations, and you legitimately never know. I mean, for our business even, there are people who reach out to me who are like, "Hey, I do you guys work with X, Y, and Z type clients?" Yeah, sure. Great. I actually went to school with someone who's doing a thing. Do you want to talk to them? And they're a great client. I never asked them for a referral. They saw something on LinkedIn because we put ourselves out
Uh-huh.
there, or we came to mind and they took a moment to like check in. It's like those moments of serendipity that you can create just by like I tell people when they start consulting or they start their like a freelance role, I'm like, hey, like spend months just talking to people. Like you can sit and talk to people and have 5 meetings in a day and nothing comes of it. And that's okay. Thank you. It was great, 5 great conversations. You have to have no expectations. And if you walk in expecting nothing and just give to the universe, it gives back to you. And there'll be days where you have 2 conversations and both of them turn into something. You just never know. But like by having the conversations is the only way to make it happen.
Very similar to what we briefly, I guess part of it we discussed before started recording or something, but even what you did, right? Like engaging with the academia, right? Like small things, like come give a guest talk, right? Or introduce yourself, put your name out there of your agency, of your organization, and then guess what happens, right? Life happens, people get interested, you get excited. So, and then next thing you know, these people could be your really great workers or just, people part of your network. So again, nothing quite like the in-person, the analog experience.
The analog experience. That is great. That's a perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
I have a question for you about like, think of all your favorite and least favorite students. I'm kidding, but not really. Like, in your opinion, like what separates the top 5% of students from everyone else?
From everyone else. Yeah. So I mean, I'm gonna be so I have a pretty strong opinion about that, which again is something that I've you're like, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Hit
something that
me.
I've shared this view over a long time. I'm gonna also draw some sports analogies here. I don't know if it's gonna be relevant, but in sports, right? And I'll transition to the classroom elements to the students. But
I'm all for it.
in
You're singing my song right now. Keep going.
so, like in sports, right? Like you always have, and people always say this talent, that talent, generational talent. But what we don't see even within those talents, right? Or even like the sheer number of talents is always limited. What really is the long-term success predictor over the long run is all the things like grit, perseverance, how hardworking you are. Do you give up or you don't give up, right? Do you go knocking on these doors? Even some of these doors seem to be hidden, or I don't know, maybe they're just not excited to open these doors for you. So I would say that's like the top really percent. I mean, at that level, because we're talking about, hey, kids going to good schools, like good public school, prestigious school, right? Like even to get in here, they all are good enough. So what's going to distinguish that top 5% are some of these things that I said. Very similar how in sports, right? Like you look at, I mean, people like, I don't know, Cristiano Ronaldo or someone who for sure is pretty talented. I mean, no one can argue with that, but he really built himself with his hard work and ethic and dedication. I think at the end of the day, that's what matters, especially over the long run. Like, are you willing to take that cost and persevere and really, go all in versus not? So I would say this. I mean, if you were to ask like this,
Yeah.
what is that skill or skills? I may probably single out that one or those
I,
ones.
I think that you nailed it in that you see this with like 5-star players coming up who are like highly touted. It's almost like if it was easy for them to get to this point or they worked their ass off, but then it got easy and it kind of got not handed to them, but they hit this like, hey, I'm a 5-star recruit, top program. The work
Mhm.
actually gets harder, and like the work increases as life goes on to a point where you eventually will have to work hard. For some people, like these 3-stars who turn into 5-stars, like the IU football team is a good example.
Yeah,
Like they recruit a
it's a
bunch of
great
three
example.
stars who work really, really hard and come together as a team or a unit. Like think there's an element of like it's easier to always work hard and have to have a little chip on your shoulder, and it can be more of a distraction to be highly touted 5-star, the expectations, but then not having to work as hard. Like people I went to school with who were just naturally A students in high school struggle sometimes when they move out of high school into secondary because there's an issue of the second tier of education. Now the work is a lot harder, and I haven't had to work in so long. You lose it, like you lose that
Uh,
chip that allows you to like push yourself a little bit harder.
Absolutely. Well, especially in your world that's like very dynamic, right? Like, I mean, it's never going to be perfect, right? So there may be a roadblock with a client, right, or some issue, or like if you're not used to just like you said, working your ass off and really kind of getting the job done, maybe you'll be discouraged. So you're like, well, this is really not working for me, or just kind of ready to give up. And if you haven't consistently reinvented yourself, rebuilt yourself, and encountered those situations and came out stronger, right? It's so easy to just feel down, but yeah, this is. I mean, it's a very dynamic world.
It's I love the sports analogies. You're going to get me started. So I'm a huge baseball fan. Go White
Nice.
Sox. And there's a saying like you get a hit 30% of the time for your career in baseball. They'll put you in the Hall of Fame, right? You're a career 300 hitter, right? That's an amazing career. And it's really easy. Like the team at Mixtape's amazing. Every agency I've worked at, like it's really, really easy to lose. Everyone has hot streaks. You go on a heater, and everyone has streaks where you can't win, even though you were the best choice for 4 in a
Yep.
row. And it's really easy when you lose a couple to think, what are we doing wrong? What could have I done better? What could we have done differently? Because it's really easy when you find out they went with another agency or you didn't win the deal to look back and think we could have done this, this, and this. Hindsight's 2020. But also,
Mhm.
if you win half of the deals you pitch in this business, it's remarkable. You're doing great. It's awesome. Like, I think any agency owner would say, "Hey, if 50% of the deals we pitch, we win, I'm all for it." Sure.
Amazing. Yeah.
Because that's kind of where you want to land. And that's a great success rate in baseball, but not necessarily if you're a quarterback and you're completing 50% of your passes, you're out of the league, right? It's just so different for every microcosm or environment you're in, whether you're in sports or you're in entertainment or you're in like private or public sector, right? Graduation rates. I'm sure you're like, if none of your students were graduating, someone would sit you
Yeah.
down and be like, hey, graduation rate's pretty low. What are we not doing here? Or if everyone was getting A's, right? They'd be like,
Yeah.
"Hey,
It's
there's a."
another extreme.
You have to learn the balance within, like, where success lies within your given industry.
Yeah, well, in the research, I mean, since we all like talking about or we started talking about consumer behavior, so being a consumer behavior decision making kind of nerd, right? So there's a really nice term that I like, right? It's called regression to the mean. It's a pretty kind of famous concept where basically no matter like if you had an amazing day or if you're at the top of your game, I mean, it's impossible to stay there. There's always going to be kind of a central tendency where, yeah, you're just going to go to your normal baseline average, and that's okay. But how do you handle that? How do you kind of own it and keep at it? That's really important.
Yeah, sometimes you feel like you can't lose. It was like, "We're
Yeah.
never gonna lose another deal again," and then there's a month where you're like, "Are the phones still plugged in, right? Is our website still up?" Because you just don't know, and you're right, it's a regression to the mean. I think
Yeah.
a key component of that, sports analogy again, in baseball, is that you can go 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. You literally have to forget that shit the next day.
Yep.
Like, it's 162 games. It's a long season, and every day you could have 2 errors, strike out twice, a lousy game. The next day, if you can't clear that, you're in a bad spot, right? You've gotta be able to
Blank
reset.
slate.
Blank
Exactly.
slate, totally.
Yep. Yeah.
On the I've always been fascinated by your work in consumer behavior, and now that you've done so much research on it and you're on the public sector, but you also worked on the brand side, what's one thing you would tell a CEO about consumer behavior that you think maybe most C-suite execs struggle to grasp or struggle to understand or come to terms with?
Yeah. That's a good one. There's like some like 1 million things that I would love to say, but let me pick on one. I like this one. And I mean, it always, to me, I mean, the reason why I'll talk about it, even me, when I was on the brand side, I think I was also vulnerable to that or sort of subject to some of the same bias. But the biggest thing, I think, when you're a CEO of an organization, right? I mean, clearly you're there for a reason. You built your way up, you did well, you're passionate about your company, your organization, you want to see it succeed. But with that always comes the notion of just kind of optimism bias, right? You kind of wearing this rose colored glasses. So you think that, okay, my brand, my organization, right? We are awesome. We are the best, and everyone else should think so about us. Our consumers kind of raving about us, and part of that is if you're CEO. I mean, of course, you would have to tend to have that optimism tendency, but also whoever your C-suite or other people who are advising you, many of them not going to tell you otherwise. They'll be like, "Oh, we're doing well here. We're doing well here. Maybe if something is not as good, we're gonna fix it, right?" So it's this bubble, kind of this environment where you're getting this positive information. Well, guess what? The average consumer could care less about your brand. It's a very competitive space, right? They're overloaded with information. There's data suggesting that average consumer get it, especially in the urban environment, get exposed to up to 5,000 commercial messages, brand messages per day, right? There's just no way they can handle that amount of information. So it's a big overload. So competing for that space is super hard. So I think the biggest takeaway is that, like, get a reality check, get a sense check. It doesn't mean that consumers hate you or don't like you, but maybe have a more realistic assessment of the strength of your brand and how good it is, but also some potential opportunities to grow and kind of how you want to stand out in that competitive space.
The CEO myopia, right? Like they're in this
Yep.
like tunnel vision, and I think that I'll add to that as companies grow, it's really easy. You have to have people you trust. You have to have that circle of trust of like your senior execs, but you have to be certain that they are comfortable telling you when you might be wrong or
Yeah,
surfacing something that is a struggle, is a weak
exactly.
point for the org. Because if they can't bring that up, they're not going to bring it up. It's just going to atrophy even further, and then something falls apart. And you think that as the CEO, you've got these rose-colored glasses on, that you're the greatest ever. In reality, you're losing customers out of the bottom of the bucket faster than you
Exactly.
ever realized.
You don't need just yes men or yes women, right? Like you need kind of a reality check, and especially when it comes to the customer, because I mean, customer centricity is important. And there's all these adages of customers the king, and being obsessed with the customer is important, all that stuff. But yeah, I think that's my lengthy response to your question.
No, it's a great answer. It's a great answer. And it reminds me of one of my favorite sayings, which is the customer's not always right, but they're allowed to be wrong. So, like, one of my favorite books is Unreasonable Hospitality, because I come
Uh-huh.
from restaurant, right? It's basically about this restaurant owner who ran a restaurant that earned Michelin stars like straight out of the gates. That did these kind of. The Bear is a bit of like a lot of what the show The Bear is about, is like the front of the house experience from the Reasonable Hospitality, of just doing things
Yeah,
absolutely crazy just to make someone's night. And part of it was that when a table says a steak is undercooked, your immediate reaction as a server, because I've been there, is to explain that it's actually to temp. The kitchen wasn't wrong, but we'll fix it. And it's like, take everything up to the comma before we'll fix it, and just don't say it, because it doesn't
yeah,
matter. Doesn't They're allowed to be wrong. It doesn't matter. Just cook it how they want it and like fix it.
yeah.
Like, there's this, and you feel like you're like, well, we didn't make a mistake. And you're like, now you're just arguing with the customer. Like, just let it go. You're not going to win. Like, what's the point of winning
Exactly.
that? They're just never going to come back. Right.
Yeah, and that also, I mean, what I had in mind, what I mentioned about sort of customer space being very competitive, many customers not really caring about that. There's even a pretty interesting, so it's a research study. So I mean, you probably know them, Havas. So
Uh
Havas
huh.
is a pretty big kind of player. So they have that what they call meaningful brand study. They've been doing that, I think, over several years now. So they run a bunch of surveys, longitudinal tracking. But what they find top of line highlight is that if vast majority of the brands in the world would disappear or were to disappear, customers would absolutely not care. They could care less, and they usually provide numbers, right, like 80%, 85%, whatever. So again, I mean, we overthink it as senior executives, and we feel we take very strong pride. But maybe, I mean, maybe we should rethink our approach or not take it so dearly and kind of personally.
Totally agree. 100%.
Yeah.
Last question for you. And this one is not related to anything whatsoever, but it's my favorite question. I ask it on every episode.
Sure.
Because it's mixtape digital, and because I love music, and because I worked in a music store years ago, I love the thread, and I love hearing this answer from guests. If your career had a 2 to 3 song playlist, what songs would you include, and why those songs?
Okay, a 2 to 3. Okay, so it's not so easy to narrow it down, but let me try. And in these songs, I think, like you said, I'm probably gonna think more from the perspective of the career and maybe describing my journey in some way. Not necessarily. I mean, I love all sort of songs. So, but anyway, so first one, or the one that I'll say, and well, that's also a song I think when I was kind of growing up a bit younger. That was a pretty popular song. Destiny's Child, Survivor, young kind of Beyonce or something. And the reason why, I mean, this song, I mean, it's a
Everyone knows
decent
that
song.
song. Yeah, that
Yeah,
song was huge.
it's a decent song. But what I especially like about it is that theme of sort of like resilience, and again pushing against the odds and coming out stronger in some whatever like difficult situations, things like that. So I think that's probably why I would single this song out. And even, I mean, that's probably going to be a recurrent theme in today's episode, because I also talked about how that's important for like young generation of marketers, and that's how I felt also growing up.
Nice
Like,
dual meaning there. Look at you. I
yeah,
like it.
exactly. And then the other,
Thematically diverse.
yeah, and the other one is that's a pretty interesting one. But today, don't worry, be happy. I think it was Bobby McFerrin or something.
It,
But just like, to me, that song kind of reflecting back on my career, both on the in the industry, but also in kind of in academia. Just this notion of seeing on the bright side, staying positive, staying upbeat, right? Like no matter what goes your way or what happens, you just kind of be optimistic about it, keep pushing, keep enjoying what you do, because the outcome or the final goal of where you want to be is important, but at least as much, if not more, is the process, right? So just positive. I mean, everyone needs a bit more positivity in our lives, in our world these days. So I'll leave you with that.
That
Hopefully that
means
works.
that honestly that's a phenomenal choice, Mansur, because it is because it resonates with me, right? Like I suffered for years. I still suffer from too cool for school, right? Like I would never try anything different because I didn't want to embarrass myself and I didn't want to seem like a
Yeah,
weirdo or a nerd, right? And I still struggle. Like no, like share it doesn't matter, right? Like I'm gonna do something. So this is what I like. And there's a comedian, Pete Holmes, who he's had a reel on Instagram that I saw where he talked about yes, thank you as his mantra. So like your
interesting.
flight's delayed, yes, thank you. This shit happens, right? Like now maybe, oh no, I'm gonna get to my house 2 hours later or 4 hours later. I'm still gonna get home from across the country in a tube that's at 30,000 feet, traveling hundreds of miles an hour faster than that would have taken months in a covered
Yeah,
wagon, right? You have to look at this
then
like you have to really, it's really, really, really easy and tempting. And I still do it. I look at every little thing as like catastrophic. Or what I do is like I'll be having a bad day and then I will drop an egg or something and it will be like the straw that breaks the camel's back. And I'm like I fly off the handle when in reality it's literally nothing. It's just being
yeah,
dramatic,
in the
right?
grand scheme of things, yeah, it's
Grand
all
scheme
good.
of things, it's all just stuff. It's stuff you can fix. It's not a huge deal, right?
Yeah, yeah. So we just keep doing what we do, keep pushing and enjoying the process.
Enjoy the process. Dr. Kamatov, Mansur, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it. Love this
My pleasure.
conversation.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.